The new M5 is the first M saloon to have one of these, but don't worry, because there's still a proper big V8 under there. Maybe you should worry though. Controversial drivetrain, mad interior, loads of technology. Let's get into it. So yes, this is a plug-in hybrid M5 with a V8 that's slightly less powerful than the old one, but added to an electric motor in the gearbox that makes it a 727 horsepower car overall. Back to all the undergubbins in a moment. Let's get stuck into the looks. Okay, so let's have a look what's changed on the outside. So masses of aggressive cooling, obviously for an M5, this is all open down here. Kidney grills are illuminated, big M5 badge, but only half of this is opened up. You see that? It's all blanked off and glossy. Then very angular front bumpers to say I'm an M5, and pumped out stance as well. This is 75mm wider across the front track, 45mm wider at the rear. So this front wing has been really punched out, but to me, doesn't have quite the stance on the road that something like an RS6 does. Maybe that's a bit too caricatured for you. Okay, what about the wheels? These are 20s at the front, 21s at the back, so you've got that staggered look to it, and I like the fact there's no fake vent like on an M3 here, because they've had to leave room for your charging port. Then, of course, if you'd like to throw some money at the carbon fibre department, you can have carbon mirrors, carbon roof, or you get a sunroof as standard. And coming round to the back, classic M5 stuff, isn't it? Quad exhaust pipes and the lip spoiler on top of the boot lid. But if this boot isn't big enough, then there's the one that we're really excited for, coming in just a couple of weeks, the new M5 Touring. Bit of a delay until then though, so I've got just long enough to explain how this thing works. Now, the other day I had a chat with the boss of the M division, Frank van Meel, and he said that 6 years ago, when this car was first being kind of brainstormed at BMW's headquarters, they were thinking of making the new M5 a full EV, but they decided not to because it wouldn't have had the sustained track performance and the long distance ability that an M5 customer expects. They also thought about doing a new 911 and C63 style small battery, fast discharge, fast recharge kind of hybrid, but in the end they went for a plug-in setup with an 18.6 kilowatt hour battery and a V8 basically related to the one that's in the, related to the one that's in the XM.
One that claims 43 miles of electric range, can run at up to 87 miles per hour on battery alone, and because of how hybrids game the lab tests, means this 700 horsepower M5 officially emits less than 40 grams per kilometre of CO2.
But is it just me that's thinking, no, there's no one actually looking forward to spending 110 grand on an M5 just so they can challenge themselves to get all the way to the office or all the way on the school run and back without the engine coming on, just on electric? No. Main benefit of the hybrid is, well, it's good for the CO2 average on paper, and in the real world, you can leave your neighbourhood on an early morning and not make everyone hate you by cold starting this guy.
Engine-wise, it revs to 7,200 RPM and is limited to either 155 or 189 miles an hour, depending on your option spend. It does 0 to 62 miles per hour in 3.5 seconds, which is actually 0.2 slower than the old M5 competition.
And there's a very good reason for that. This car weighs an absolute ton. Actually, it weighs 2.4 tons, 2,430 kilos, because it's bigger overall than the old M5. It has to package that motor, the battery, all those ancillaries that come with a hybrid system, and stuff like rear wheel steering and more ambient lighting than the Vegas Strip. So let's have a look at that now. Now, if turquoise isn't your thing, you can probably tweak that in this completely baffling menu here, but that's not the menu I'm interested in. I'm interested in M Hybrid, which I've gone into now, and this is how you, well,
you deploy your electricity, I guess. So there's the fully electric mode, there's E-control for maintaining the state of charge that you want, there's the hybrid setting, and then you've got dynamic and dynamic plus. And this is all about training the car in terms of, well, are you going for one hot lap? Are you going for a quick B-road blast? Are you lapping the Nürburgring in real life as opposed to on an Xbox? And this will, I don't know, choose the most efficient way of using that electric motor in the gearbox. But you're presuming that you can save all this onto these very clever M shortcut buttons here, because you're not going to be going in and out of the touchscreen while driving. And then speaking of, the other thing that you're going to have to spend the first weekend doing when you're here in the new M5 is going into setup. And then blimey, look at the amount of modes in here. And because BMW's gone quite glossy and minimalist with the new 5 Series inside, one of the engineers was telling me it's been really annoying trying to cram all this stuff in because they don't have the space anymore for all those buttons that used to give you the shortcut. So there's no sports exhaust button down here anymore. There is no rocker switch for turning the gear shift velocity up and down. It's all in here. Sport Plus for drivetrain, energy recovery mode, 3 settings for that. And then of course the suspension, whether you want to send all of the drive to the rear or split it between all 4 wheels, steering weight, and so on. And if you're an American, because I know the Americans like this, you'll be disappointed that you can no longer shift gears on the stick down here, because that's just a switch. I mean, I know they've painted the engine start button red, and yeah, they've given you a new extremely thick M steering wheel. Why does BMW think its customers long to hold something girthy? The mind boggles. But for me, I'd sooner it was just a bit less of a rainbow, and I don't know, I had more clues that I'm sitting in the flagship M car.
Oh, and you can't get the M Division's kinkiest carbon fibre bucket seats in the new M5 because BMW says that M5 buyers like something a little bit easier to climb into and out of. Now, although I didn't have an old M5 right next door to compare with, it felt to me like you don't sit quite as low in the new one as you might like to, which I wonder might have something to do with this 5 Series platform also having to work as a battery skateboard EV, aka the i5.
Now usually I'd wrap things up about now, but a couple of weeks ago I actually had the chance to drive the new M5 on track. Now the car was disguised on top, but it was finished underneath. Unfortunately, we only got 3 laps of a racetrack that I didn't know very well. But anyway, here's some first impressions of a 2.4 ton super saloon on a racetrack. Right, out of the studio and in at the deep end. Let's see what this new M5's got beyond a lot of weight. But I'm going to try and leave my processes behind. Don't review the spec sheet, just review the car. Yeah, 720 odd horsepower. Certainly deals with the weight quite nicely. We're absolutely chomping down at the pace car in front of us. You can't get away. So yes, the new M5, in a surprise to absolutely no one, is very fast. Fast enough that there's loads of equipment in this prototype rolling around in the back of it. The engineers have been busy in this one at the Nürburgring. This has been their ride setup car. And you know, they've just let us borrow it for the day, which is nice of them. Take the day off, boys. So I'm basically going to experience 2 different personalities with the M5 today. This is like the middle setting at the moment, so I'm in kind of mid-level regen and mid-level steering weight and throttle response, and then we'll ramp it up into M2 mode in a moment. Oh, it's lively on the brakes there. As usual for all these latest Gen M cars, the front end's absolutely nailed. You never get a sense at the front it's going to wash wide, despite the fact that it's got great big V8 up there. Of course, this is the only new generation 5 Series that gets a V8. The engineers have said that's a real pain. For one model, you got to engineer this whole new engine bay almost just to take a big old V8. What do we think of the noise? Is that coming across? Not too bad, you know, for a twin-turbo modern direct injection car. It's not nape pricklingly amazing, but the old augmented noise that they've been fond of for a while at BMW, it's better to listen to than if it was fully electric, isn't it? Doesn't feel like there's corruption through the brake pedal, so I think the decision to go with regenning through the motor in the gearbox, which you can adjust, is
one of the many, many settings in the screen. I think that's better than doing it on the brakes when you get that sense that the brake pedal is kind of fizzing around underneath you. The car feels nice and neutral through the long sweeping bends when it's fully loaded up. Would I rather the car was lighter philosophically? Yes. Does it feel like an absolute pudding? No. Got more noise coming through now we're in Sport Plus mode. They are very clever, the engineers, the way they blend what little decent noise a modern twin turbo V8 gives you with something augmented, something that's a little bit synthesized to ultimately give you something that's, well, worth listening to. It's a damn sight more interesting soundtrack than you get in a Taycan or a Tesla, isn't it? So, best sounding V8 ever? No. Am I glad it's here at all? Yes. And the brakes as well don't feel like they're suffering from any kind of fade. Got the ceramics on this car, they're an option. I mean, probably shouldn't be with the weight of the car and how much you're going to pay for an M5. Really ought to be standard, I think. But if you do have them, it saves 20 kilos. You can save more than that by having the carbon fibre roof instead of a sunroof. That saves 34, I think. God, this strolls on in a straight line. Just took a short shift there because it's just got so much torque that you just don't need to rev the engine out. It makes a good noise when you do, but just lean on the amount of turbo boost and the electrification. Let's try second through this complex this time. Bit gratuitous, but bit of a wiggle, but just trying to stay with the pace car through the complex. He's bloody quick as Dirk in front of me. Yeah, steering maybe a little bit too light, even in this sport mode. Feels like they're doing so much to try and disguise the weight. Maybe they've done too much with the steering, just trying to disguise all of that mass. It's very, very composed, this car. It's very mature in the way I'm driving it. I mean, I'm sure if you turn everything off, it will be an absolute yop. Finding I keep accidentally pulling a gear. The paddles need a bit more of a click on them, I think. Every now and again, I'm just accidentally squeezing the steering wheel and I'm up a gear when I want it to be down one. I mean, this is the thing with this new M5. Just learning what it does, learning how all this calibration and systems work, that's going to be half of the experience. I mean, once you have got that all set up, maybe your preference will just be, you know, everything in the loudest, angriest mode, all the assistance systems turned way off, and then you save that on your M1, your M2 button here on the wheel, and then it's job done. But there's so many menus and so many different personalities buried within this car. I'm wondering if the reason it weighs 2,330 kilograms is because, well, a ton of that must be the instruction manual. It's just bonkers, isn't it? That something that weighs the same as a Range Rover did not that long ago is going to be capable of a, you know, not much past 7-minute Nürburgring time. And it's absolutely phenomenal. I think this is the thing, you can philosophically disagree with this car, with the weight, with the electrification path it's taken, with the size of it, with the complication. Those are all legitimate problems that you could have with it, and I probably wouldn't argue against any of that. I've got some of those quandaries myself. But then when you drive it, you have to kind of take your hat off to them and go, you've done alchemy with something this big and heavy. It has no right to feel agile and just wieldable, but it does. I've always wanted to say this. Anyway, back to the studio.
The BMW M5 has now been with us for 40 years, and while it's had its minor ups and downs in that time, this is still one of the most consistent badges in the whole car world. There's not a single M5 that you would turn down if it was delivered to your door. Will that stay true for this one? I think this may have the toughest job of any M5 to maintain this badge's streak. So that's not a definitive verdict on the new M5 because we haven't yet got it on the road or against any rivals. we'll have another go in an undisguised car soon, but until then I've got to say the car didn't make a very emotional bond with me on our first meeting. I'm left wondering if its monumental spread of hybrid technology and configurability has come at the expense of just some good old-fashioned jump in and enjoy yourself gratification. My other suspicion is that M cars do tend to get better with age. We weren't hugely taken with the first turbo M3 when it was launched, or the previous Gen M5 at first either, but they tend to get honed and improved during their lifespans. A competition version here, a facelift there, then a CS, and they end up as much more lovable cars than when they started. Still, for 110 grand, I'd want it right first time, wouldn't you?